And just like that, the Alice Cooper Band became rock stars. In continuation on my series on the Alice Cooper story, today I want to talk about Billion Dollar Babies. Here's the story, how they moved from the success of School's Out to their follow-up. The single School's Out was released in summer of 1972. This song was a global phenomenon. It was a massive worldwide hit. It shot the band to the absolute top tier of rock acts, especially in the UK, where it hit number one. The band members suddenly found themselves wealthy, famous, and constantly in motion, touring extensively to support the album. But here's where things get even more interesting. The success of their theatrical stage show, which included the famous Guillotine, Snakes, and Blood, created an expectation for even bigger, more extravagant productions. The band was under pressure to keep the momentum moving, so they came up with the concept of Billion Dollar Babies. The central inspiration for this follow-up album was born directly from this overwhelming new reality. The band was stunned by the sudden wealth and fame. Alice Cooper famously asked, "How could we, this band that 2 years ago was living in the Chambers Brothers basement in Watts, be the number one band in the world with people throwing money at us?" This realization led to the core concept of excess, decadence, and the worship of money, the very things they were experiencing. The album was conceived as a satirical look at America's obsession with money and the billion-dollar baby that rock music had become. They also felt it was time to go back to what they did best, and that was being shocking, because after the relatively lighthearted youth anthem theme of School's Out, the band decided to lean back into the darker, more perverse shock rock themes that defined their stage persona, resulting in tracks like the title track and I Love the Dead. More on that later. Now let me talk about the recording process. The album was primarily recorded at the record plant in New York and Morgan Studios in London, continuing their successful collaboration with legendary producer Bob Ezrin. He was the architect of their polished sounds and pushed the band to make a record that was even more sonically ambitious and theatrical than School's Out. But with great success comes great challenges, because unlike earlier records, Billion Dollar Babies was made while the band was already famous and constantly touring, which on the one hand created some strain, but on the other hand helped them come up with content for the album. This time Bob Ezrin decided to add another element to the band's sound, and that was the sound of Broadway. Bob Ezrin was known for his love of theatricality, so he arranged the songs with Broadway-style dramatic shifts, harmonies, and sound effects to match the concepts. Let me talk about some of the songs now. The album opens with a cover song with a very surprising origin. Now, I actually did not notice until I did my research for this video, but the opening track, Hello Hooray, is a cover song. But their version was not like the original. The Alice Cooper Band's version of Hello Hooray is a bombastic arena rock masterpiece that serves as the perfect opening for the big stage show and the Billion Dollar Babies album itself. The lyrics perfectly match the band's theatrical shock rock persona, acting as a direct address to the audience, kicking off the spectacle. Some of the lyrics include, "Hello, hooray, let the show begin, I've been ready. Ready as the audience that's coming here to dream, loving every second, every movement, every scream." The song was also frequently used to open the shows. Starting with the Billion Dollar Babies tour, eventually the song became the traditional opening number for nearly every Alice Cooper concert for decades, cementing its status as the ultimate curtain raiser. But let's talk about the surprising origin of the song. The original version of Hello Hooray is a far cry from the hard rock swagger of Alice Cooper. The song was written by Canadian singer-songwriter Rolf Kempf in 1968. It was first recorded by legendary folk singer Judy Collins for her 1968 album, Who Knows Where the Time Goes. Her version is a gentler, more acoustic-based folk pop tune. Rolf Kempf wrote the song after a rough patch in his life, and the original lyrics were about reinvention, spiritual renewal, and being born again after enduring hard times. But here's something interesting. Judy Collins thought the line, "Ready as a man to be born, only to be born again," was about the literal birth of a child. But you may be wondering, why did they choose this song to cover? The connection came through producer Bob Ezrin, who was Canadian and knew of Rolf Kempf's work. Bob Ezrin and Alice Cooper heard the line, "Hello, hooray, let the show begin, I've been ready," and immediately recognized its power to introduce the Alice Cooper character and his stage spectacle. While they kept the emotional core of the song, they gave it a hard rock arrangement, adding dramatic orchestral elements, and a soaring, captivating slide guitar solo by session musician Steve Hunter. Rolf Kemp was reportedly delighted with Alice Cooper's bombastic and slightly modified version, saying that Cooper got the emotional essence of the tune right and added a tag to bring it home. It's one of the greatest examples in rock of an artist taking a song from a completely different genre and transforming it into a signature anthem. Not only did the band cover another artist, they also covered themselves, so let me explain. Talking about the song Elected. The song was released as a single in September 1972, just ahead of the U.S. presidential election that year. It was the very first single off the $1 Billion Babies album, which followed in 1970. Alice Cooper and the band recognized the inherent theatrical absurdity of American politics. The idea was simple: who is the most unlikely, self-obsessed celebrity who could possibly run for president? The answer, of course, was the Alice Cooper character himself. The song is a satire of hollow campaign promises and the media spectacle of elections. Alice is the Yankee Doodle dandy in a gold Rolls Royce, promising nothing but chaos and celebrity. The most famous line is at the end, delivered in a semi-serious politician speech. Everybody has problems, and personally, I don't care. It perfectly captures the cynicism and detachment many people feel towards career politicians. But here's the thing: Elected is a reworking of one of the band's earliest, most unsuccessful songs. The music and core riff of Elected are recycled from a track called Reflected, which appeared on the band's psychedelic, critically panned 1969 debut album, Pretty's for You. Producer Bob Ezrin saw the potential in the riff and suggested they revitalize it with new contemporary lyrics and a hard rock polish. The band took the garage rock framework of Reflected and turned it into the massive theatrical glam rock anthem we know as Elected. There was a lot of satire in the album as well, which can be heard in the title track, $1 Billion Babies. The song is a direct satirical commentary on the band's sudden, overwhelming fame and wealth following the success of School's Out. Alice Cooper and the band recognized they were being treated like $1 billion babies, precious, profitable, and overindulged rock royalty. Musically, it's a driving hard rock song with a distinctive, eerie rhythm. The arrangement is theatrical, which is amplified by the duet vocal, making it sound like a strange, perverse nursery rhyme. Now you may be wondering, who sang the duet with Alice? It wasn't one of the band members. It was Scottish folk pop singer Donovan, the guy who sang the hits like Mellow Yellow and Sunshine Superman. So here's the story. The band was recording the album at Morgan Studios in London. As luck would have it, Donovan was working on his own material in a separate studio upstairs in the same building. Donovan and the Alice Cooper band met at the studio. Alice Cooper played Donovan the track, and they asked the folk icon to contribute vocals. Donovan, being experimental and open to the idea, agreed. Donovan immediately realized that to cut through the loud, heavy, hard rock guitars, he couldn't use his usual mid-range voice. He famously decided to use a piercing falsetto for the chorus and high harmony parts. If you listen closely, the extremely high-pitched vocals singing the lyric $1 Billion Babies is actually Donovan. Donovan also delivered the famous, chilling, whispered, spoken word lines like the one mentioned above. This collaboration was a total surprise to the music world and added an extra layer of shock and spectacle to an already outrageous album, showcasing Alice Cooper's ability to cross genres and create theatrical moments. Then there's No More Mr. Nice Guy. This is arguably the most famous and defining single from the $1 Billion Babies album and one of Alice Cooper's biggest hits globally. The song is an autobiographical defense and humorous complaint about Alice Cooper's public image. Following the enormous controversial success of School's Out and the elaborate stage shows featuring guillotine, snake, and fake blood, the band was constantly in the news as sick and obscene. The lyrics suggest that the persona of the wicked shock rocker was actually created by the very media, parents, and critics who condemned him. He was a sweet guy until the paper started printing lies and people treated him like a monster. The song contains some of the most memorable and comedic moments in the Alice Cooper catalog, highlighting the societal rejection they faced, and the lyrics are as follows. I went to church incognito when everybody rose. The Reverend Smith, he recognized me and punched me in the nose. This exaggerated story of being physically assaulted by a member of the clergy perfectly sums up the satirical us versus them mindset of the band and its audience. The music was primarily composed by rhythm guitarist Michael Bruce with lyrics by Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper has noted that despite its aggressive defensive lyrics, the song is structurally one of the most accessible and pop records the band has ever made. He even joked that the music was based on The Who's 1966 track Substitute. giving it a classic British invasion feel under the hard rock production. The song was a major hit. It reached number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was an even bigger success in the UK, peaking at number 10, but the album also includes one of the most controversial tracks in the Alice Cooper catalog, perfectly illustrating the extreme lengths the band would go for shock and satire. It's the final track on the $1 Billion Babies album, and it served as a crucial purpose in their live show. I'm talking about I Love the Dead. The song deals explicitly with the taboo subject of necrophilia. Lyrics are grotesque and graphic, intended to push the boundaries of decency and rock music. Like much of Alice Cooper's music, this is not a literal endorsement, but a piece of dark satirical performance art. The song takes the villain persona of Alice Cooper to its absolute lowest and most depraved point. The entire point is to be so vile that the audience is both shocked and entertained. More important than the album track itself was his role in the legendary $1 Billion Babies tour. The song was the ultimate climax of the band's elaborate, groundbreaking stage show, tying the music directly to the theatrics. I Love the Dead was used as the soundtrack to the Alice Cooper character's final descent into depravity and his subsequent punishment. As the band played the song, the Alice Cooper character would be placed into the famous working guillotine prop. The song's darkness leads directly to the ultimate payoff of the show, the swift, bloody mock beheading of Alice Cooper. The crowd get to see the villain punished for all the sins described in the song and throughout the album. Critics and fans who looked past the gore saw it as a morality play. Evil is always punished. The song is not a typical hard rock track, but it's structured more like a gothic rock ballad or a theatrical piece, giving it a dramatic, eerie atmosphere that separates it from the hits like Elected or No More Mr. Nice Guy. The dramatic structure makes it a fitting, chilling final word for the album. In the end, the album was a success. It was a moment the Alice Cooper Band became a legitimate commercial powerhouse on a global scale. It remains the most commercially successful album of the original band's career. The album reached number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart. This was the first time the band had topped the U.S. album charts, surpassing the peak of their previous album, Schools Out, which hit number 2. It also climbed to number 1 on the UK albums chart. The band had already established a huge presence in the UK with the Schools Out single, and this solidified their status as international superstars. The singles, particularly Elected and No More Mr. Nice Guy, ensured the album stayed visible and continuously sold well throughout 1973. The album solidified the Alice Cooper Band's shift from being a controversial cult favorite to a mainstream arena-filling act. If you want to check out my reviews of the albums that were released before this, check out this playlist right here. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.